So, what did you miss at Jubilee today? Well, I was away last week, so it was really wonderful to be back. So, you missed me feeling really glad to be home. But anyway, lots of folks today, and a really good feeling, and I can't exactly explain how or why that feeling was, but there were I don't know 180 of us together, and the music was spectacular. Oscar Peterson's "Hymn to Freedom," sung by the choir, with Daniel just going to town on the piano, was fantastic, and the setting as the choir brought us into "My Lord, What a Morning" just filled my soul. And in the midst of the offering, Marie's Pie Jesu brought tears to my eyes. And we had the choir singing Ubi Caritas softly underneath the reading of Paul's letter to the church in Corinth, the 13th chapter. The love is patient, love is kind, and that was beautiful. And we sang softly, don't be afraid," as we listened to the prophet Jeremiah give his own warrant to preach. Don't say that you're just a boy. I will give you the words, God said. Don't be afraid. I'm with you. So something about the music and the feeling of being together was very, very powerful. We felt the Spirit moving, connecting us and drawing us together, but also opening us up. And we listened to the gospel, to Luke's gospel, and we heard the story of Jesus preaching in his hometown, and then somebody saying, "Isn't that Joseph's kid?" And suddenly the anger, as Jesus said, I don't do miracles here. As Jesus pointed out that very often God is with the outsider as well as the insider. And then this strange story about how they planned to stone him, take him to the edge of a cliff to throw him off, which is a stoning. But then he made his way through them. He all but disappeared. And we wondered about that. And I was prepared today to preach what I think was a darn clever sermon, well written. But I think that I fell too in love with its cleverness as I created it. And there was a moment in the service where I realized everything was connecting so beautifully and going in such a wonderful place that those words I had written would not work. And so I tossed them aside, and I spoke to the truth of having an unstable relationship with Jesus. I invited people to imagine, to consider their own relationships, their own journey, as I shared mine and how I knew Jesus as a child. I knew Jesus. I was baptized and I was raised with stories of Jesus and how so alike we were, and we were special and we were good. And then I talked about meeting angry Jesus later in my life and how I didn't want that Jesus. And so I asked that Jesus to leave, and that Jesus did in fact disappear, but also took my childhood Jesus away. Until I learned that sometimes you can't just smile and say everything's all right. Sometimes you actually have to, with passion, speak truth to power. It's not just enough to wait to be accepted into positions of privilege and authority. Sometimes you have to confront. Otherwise, systemic change will never truly happen. And that God takes our passion and our anger and uses it, and we needn't be afraid of that. And in that, I met again angry Jesus and saw that he brought along calm baby Jesus too. And I spoke about coming to meet broken Jesus and hurt Jesus, and the Jesus who makes mistakes. I talked about losing it all again when I met black Jesus, truly black Jesus, not just a picture, but Jesus is shared with me from African friends and Caribbean friends, and hearing about this Jesus who used different reference points than I did and had a different agenda and different experiences, and somehow I couldn't quite understand. And so in wanting that Jesus to go away, I discovered that all the Jesuses went, and I was again left alone. until I could learn to love and follow even when I couldn't understand, even when the language wasn't familiar, because it actually isn't about me. It's about all of creation. It's about how God loves all of us in our various lenses and privileges and perspectives, and that sometimes we have to understand that ours isn't normative. And in that I met so many other expressions of Jesus, various Asian Jesus and trans Jesus and queer Jesus. And I painfully left out my experience of meeting Jesus as a woman, that female immanence, but that was also part of my journey. And then the challenge of meeting Jesus in the people that I do not like. And out of my privilege, I can say I need to engage with those people. But indeed, I think that that's what the story says. Because every time we think we've figured Jesus out and we know absolutely who Jesus is for and who Jesus is against and what Jesus believes without doubt and what side Jesus is always on, as soon as we have that, we're pretty much the guy in the gospel story who says, hey, isn't that Joseph's son? And in that moment, we drive Jesus away. Or at the very least, Jesus disappears. We lose our connection to God when we think we've got it all figured out. So what I shared today is that I do not have a stable relationship with Jesus, because Jesus keeps me on my toes, keeps me looking, keeps me guessing, keeps me wondering, but also fills my heart and my life. That was my confession to the community today, that I don't have a stable relationship. And together we wondered what that would mean and how we might pursue a lack of stability in our faith. It seems peculiar, it seems odd, I know, but it made for a wonderful, powerful Holy Sunday. And I wish you could have been with us. But I invite you to think about your relationship to God. How do you see God? Where do you see God? And are there places and people in whom you cannot even imagine God's hand at work? Maybe you need to look closer. Who knows? But whatever happens, I hope we get to see you back with us soon, because we miss you. Until we see you, God bless.